Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Intentional Guy. We are on air, and you know what? I'm not even going to try and do this. I'm going to ask you, will you please introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Thank you, Michael. My name is Tsombawi Knibye Jr., and I'm going to let Michael stick to Tsombawi and stop right there.
There we go. That will work. So I have a hard enough just saying my last name, Chestnut. Okay. So listen, I'm so glad you're here today with us. We're going to be you have a book out that's called Let Go Baby 2, and that is a prequel to something that your wife had done. So I would like you to tell us a little bit about that, because I think this is a subject I like bringing. I like this because this is bringing something unique to our show, and I do know a couple of our audience members who have gone through this as well. So give
Sure.
you the
Yeah.
floor for a minute.
Yeah. So, Letting Go of Baby is the book that I wrote. It's about baby loss from the male perspective. And so, what happens is that my wife actually wrote the original book, Letting Go of Baby, which, if you're looking video wise, you can see here, Letting Go of Baby. And in 2010, I'm sorry, not 2010, in 2009, we experienced baby loss. And so, just to keep a long story short, my wife was journaling, through this process. And what happened was she turned the journal into a book. And when she did that, she ended up writing the book. It came out in 2015. And then the women that read it, I saw how it blessed them and how they were able to build community around it. And let's be honest, most women have some sort of, I won't say most, but there are a number of communities out there for women who have suffered baby loss, whichever and however that loss happened.
Right.
And so then 2 years later, her and her best friend, who's a counselor, wrote the follow-up book to that. It was called What's Next? A Guide to Dealing with Grief After a Loss. And it states the 5 stages of grief, after losing, a loved one. In this case, it was losing a baby. And so in 2017, I started writing the male perspective of letting go of baby. And as usual, anyone's life starts to happen, things start to kind of pile up. You kind of don't put it on the back burner, but you kind of set it to a side. And this past year, there was friends of ours who went through the same thing with baby loss. And after having a conversation with them, talking with them, and spending time with them, I got to talk to the husband. And after talking with him, it was like, Elohim, he said, finish the book. It's like, finish the book. And so it went from being, every week I would be in the book to every day until it was finished and completed.
Yeah.
And it really, inspired me to finish and to make sure it was a complete thing. And so now the book is out, and it's right now I've gotten, some great reviews from men and from women as well,
Right.
Who have either they've read the book or they have, know their husband has read it, and they've kind of been able to, see a change in them from that communication standpoint and many other things. And so my biggest hope is that men will be able to deal with, heal from, and be free of dealing with that situation that you might not have dealt with or that you didn't know how to deal with. Because as men, we're just taught to kind of just, hold it in and just, let it go, but letting it go in a way that's not necessarily healthy for us,
Right.
And so that was the purpose behind writing Letting Go of Baby 2. So.
Well, and I think a couple things you said. I think it's probably healthy for a wife to read your book, because it gives you a perspective. It would give them a perspective of what their husband's going through that he may not be able to articulate, and vice versa. A husband reading your wife's book so that they can get a perspective of what she's going through with that, because we're talking about that is that is such a that's a huge loss.
Yeah.
And if you don't deal with it, that's something that can really destroy you, if you let it.
Yeah, either individually or it can even destroy your marriage. You
Yeah.
know, I use the analogy from, if anyone's ever seen Tyler Perry's movie Why Did I Get Married To? And if you ever seen that movie, there's a scene between Janet Jackson's character and Malik Yoba's character where they're a married couple and they lost their son, who might have been 8 or 9 years old. And what happened was is that in this movie, Malik Yoba, he acknowledges it and he realizes it, that it's something that actually happened. Where Janet Jackson's character as the mother, she never really addresses it, and it starts to tear their marriage apart, because it becomes this huge conflict where they're not seeing eye to eye on that particular moment in time when that happened. And so that could happen in anyone's marriage, or at the same time individually. Especially us as men, we're not necessarily very detailed in explaining our emotions and our feelings. And if we do that, it's like, no, dude, you're being a little too sensitive, like man up.
Yeah.
But let's be really honest here. I mean, men hurt too, you
Right.
know, and we need to be able to have an outlet to be able to talk to other men personally, to get those feelings out, to talk about them in a way where you're not being judged on how
Yeah.
you feel and judge how your emotions are, because the creator gave them to us. Like, they're the feelings he gave us to express. And so it's very interesting to see that there are a number of things that can really eat at you and tear you apart if not dealt with, because now it goes into other situations in your
Yeah.
life, and if you don't deal with it, now it starts to trickle into other circumstances in other areas of your life, and you don't really
Yeah.
know what's happening, because you're like, man, why is this happening? Well, you never dealt with that situation right there, and it's just beginning to fester, and the seed is growing bigger and bigger and bigger. So,
And that's such a cultural issue for us because I mean, that's that's how it's always been. I think we're seeing a shift in that now where people are realizing, you know, where with mental health and stuff being more awareness to it and depression and things like that. I mean, you know, you can't just suck up some things. Some
yeah.
things you've got to talk it through. You've got to find things that help you, you know. And I appreciate you sharing your story because you sharing your story is going to help someone else who's going to go through this
Mhm.
and they can learn from your experience and grow a little bit with it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to write, and even now that it's out and it's circulating, it's just surreal, because it just was an idea, and to be honest, when I was beginning to write it, I was literally talking into Google Drive, and I was
Yeah,
just talking it out, because now we don't have to write stuff. We don't have to write stuff
right,
now. We can, but I'm like, I'll go back and I'll fix it later. Let me just get it
right.
out, get it on paper, and just get it out. We'll fix it later. And when I started this past year, when I went to go finish it, it was like the finishing process was so seamless. It was like everything just came to me just so easy. Now, the hardest part of it was, the editing and making sure
Oh
this is
yeah,
right, and the grammar and all that stuff. But it kind of just flowed like a river of living water. Like, it was like, wow, this is just really coming out very clear and clean. And so, again, it was amazing to see the response from other men, after reading it and
yeah,
seeing all that's in it, because it's an open book, and it opens the conversation for us to start having as men, and not to keep that inside and bottled up, and to begin to understand that we hurt too. We have feelings. The creator gave them to us, and we need to express them, but express them in a healthy way.
yeah. What? Let me ask you this question. You know, what? Without giving away too much in the book and stuff too, but what were some things that you found that were healthy for you that you learned in this process?
Well, for one, I learned that all of the questions that I had were valid,
Mm,
but it was in the answers that I did or didn't get that helped me along the way, and I'll explain that. So, matter of fact, I'm going through inadequacy. I'm going through grief. I'm going through asking questions, why questions and how questions, and to a large degree. I'm going to be just openly and honest. There was a moment in time that lasted longer than what it should have, where I was upset with
Yeah.
Elohim. I was, because I'm like, well, why did this happen to us? And what did we do so wrong? And I'm asking all these questions. And see, as a man, we're created to conquer, we're providers and all that. And because when my wife was hurting, I couldn't fix it.
Mm.
And that bothered me because I'm like, I'm her protector. I'm everything that I was created to be for her husband. I'm her covering, I'm a protector, I'm a provider. And this situation I couldn't fix.
Mm.
And so it ate away at me because I couldn't fix it. I couldn't control it. And I couldn't I couldn't put it away. It
Right.
had to stay until the time for that period to pass. And I learned that when you rely on Elohim to be your guide and to be everything that you can't be, because there's going to come a time in your life as a husband that
Right.
you're not going to be able to fill certain voids or certain things in your wife's life. That's why he's there, and vice versa. Your wife can't fill those certain voids in your life because those are voids that only he can fill. And so that's one thing I learned. The other thing I learned was that I personally didn't reach out to someone to talk to. Someone reached out to me.
Mm.
And so in doing that, I was able to see, both sides, of the cookie jar, you would say, where
Right.
you're looking at it from the natural side and looking at it from the spiritual side. And I will be honest again, there are times when someone may be giving you scripture, someone wants to pray with you, and full disclosure, in those moments, that's not what you want to do right then. You don't want to
Yeah.
hear that scripture. You don't want to someone to be praying with you because you're in your feelings.
You're right.
And what happens is someone asked me, if you were to tell yourself, your younger self then, to go back in time and tell your younger self, something about the situation, what would you tell them, your younger self, when they went through that? And I said, it's going to sound cliche-ish, but I'm going to be very honest. I said, I would tell my younger self then, when it happened, that the first thing you need to do is pray.
Mm.
And it sounds cliche-ish, but when you go through something and you learn what you should have done at that time, but you didn't do it, I mean, that's what life lessons are all about. You learn,
Right.
you make mistakes, you learn from that mistake, and then you know how to deal with it later in life yourself or help someone else out.
Yeah.
And I've
Pass
always
that on
said,
to someone else.
yeah, exactly. And I've always said, if you're not going to learn from your mistakes, then why make mistakes?
Yeah.
You're supposed to
You're
learn.
going to keep repeating your mistakes if you don't learn from them, right?
Exactly.
And what better way too? Another thing is I like to learn from other people's mistakes because then I don't have to maybe make that mistake if I can learn from you sharing some of the things you've gone through might help that next person that's reading it, that they don't have to make some of the mistakes maybe you did.
Exactly.
So let me ask you how, first off, writing this has to be very healing to you,
Oh, definitely.
and therapeutic to do, and probably painful too. There was probably a lot of emotions in putting this project together, I can imagine.
Yeah, I didn't realize how I actually felt about it until I started writing it. Like, I knew I felt a certain way about it, like, that's for sure. But I didn't know how in depth the details were until I started writing the book. I'm like, I really felt like that then? Like, I really had those questions then, or it really was that deep? And so as I'm writing it, the situations are playing back in my mind as I'm writing. And I'm like, wow, this is really coming to life. Like, I'm really seeing it over again. But because I had gone through the process of dealing, healing, and being free from it, it wasn't a burden to write the book. It was freeing to write the book. And then it became more freeing because I'm like, I'm going to help other men who have dealt with this, who didn't deal with it, haven't healed from it yet, and aren't free from it. And so that was the inspiration that I got to keep continuing to finish. And so that became the driving force. And being able to do that is a blessing in itself.
So let me ask you a question. So your wife wrote her book first. How and that was in 2015, right?
Yes, it was released in 2015.
Okay.
Yes.
So during that time period until and now, um, my question is how was the relationship for you guys walking through this? Was it a difficult one, or was it, I imagine probably like anything, it's definitely probably a roller coaster ride. But how was that as a couple?
For us, I mean, we were pretty strong in our relationship, going through this. The difficult, and I can only really speak for me. You
Right.
gotta read her book to find out how she
Yes.
really felt.
Yes.
But I mean, for me, it was one of the toughest things I've ever had to deal with because I did not know what to do. Like I didn't know what to do. I was 27 years old, 2 years into our marriage, and so it's I had no idea what to do.
Yeah, there's nothing to
Only
prepare
thing,
you for that.
right? The only thing that I really could do was just be there for her, and like even if I didn't say anything, like just be there. Like that's all I could do.
Yeah.
There was a time where and you'll read in the book the actual details of it where my wife, and this is nothing, no secret, it's in her books and my book, where she just laid in the bed and cried,
Yeah.
and I just held her, and I'm like thinking in my head, like, what can I say? And I'm like, there's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can say or do to make or help this moment be any better.
Yeah.
But again, that's where Elohim comes in. He comes in where we fall short. And I fell short plenty of times during this process. But our relationship, it remained strong because, we knew we were going to be parents. We wanted to be parents early in our marriage. But it was getting through this to get us to that next step where we had
Right.
to be strong together. And I really wanted to be able to take whatever burden she had off of her and just take it myself because as her husband, I'm her protector, so I'm like,
Right.
let me take on the burden so that she can be free from it. But in life, we have to all go through things to help make us stronger and better, and at the time we don't realize it, but when you look back on it, you see how far you've come from that situation
Yeah.
to where you are now.
Yeah. And what strength you had, you probably didn't see it as strength. You probably felt weak in those moments, like you said, when she was crying and all you could do was hold her. But I see so much strength in that because a lot of people will want to talk. And
Mm,
sometimes you don't need to talk. You just need to be there. And that's strength. Knowing those moments when to open your mouth and those moments to keep them shut. Unfortunately, I don't know the latter part enough. But honestly, there's times when, you know, I don't even there's sometimes when people know I'm praying for them. They're that sometimes when they're right in the midst of that trauma, you know, you they just a hug and I love you is good enough.
exactly.
And that is you having strength. But for men, like you said, we want to fix it. We want to make it better. We want to help heal that and make it and this something like this makes you powerless.
Yeah. Yeah. And the great thing about it is, I'm glad you said powerless. That's powerful because it's in our weaknesses that he shows his strength.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yep. And it's in those moments that we learn so much, that you hate to go through those moments. You would never want to go through those moments again, but you also don't want to lose what you learned in those moments as
Yeah.
well, you know? And I think you and your wife probably you got a fourth book you need to do now, one as a couple, going through that and everything because marriage is hard enough with that, and then when you put on the loss of a child there, um, I just can't even imagine. I can't even imagine, and I wonder how many guys who are listening to this relate. I mean, I have a couple friends who went through this. In fact, they got bitter because of it,
Mm.
and um, of course, they found, one that I'm thinking of found his way through it like you
Mhm.
did. He didn't write a book or anything, but but there was a time where he almost walked away from God and everything because he
Mhm.
couldn't, he felt he was bitter.
Yeah.
He was bitter. He was upset, but that's being real. And it sounds like you're being honest and authentic in your book, which is what people need to read and to hear, because it's in those authentic moments like that that we can grow, even further in our
Yeah.
lives. So,
Well, I think it's important too to be real and to be authentic. And I think if we go back to the Messiah in the garden, you see for a moment his human side.
yeah,
He's about to be crucified on the cross, and his prayer is like, if you can take this cup away from me, like please. But then he reversed right back. He said, "But nevertheless, your will be done."
yeah,
And I use that as an example because you see that split moment. There's the human side. It's like, so it's like you say, "Oh, he was perfect." Yes, he was, but he also was flesh, and that
yeah,
flesh came in for that moment, but he reverted back right away. But nevertheless, your will be done. And so for us, as being real with our feelings is important because again, he gave them to us. But the scripture always tells us, no, don't let the sun go down in your wrath, being
yeah,
angry. Yes, I was angry. I was. Did I revert back all of a sudden and be like, okay, I'm angry right now, but nevertheless, your will be done? No, because I had to deal with the fact that yes, number one, I'm not the Messiah, but he's always there. He knows exactly what I'm going through and what I'm dealing with. And when I come to that realization that okay, I've had my pity party. I've gone through all the stuff. All right, okay, now I'm ready to not just deal with. I'm also ready to heal from, and I'm
yeah.
ready to be free from. And that's the main goal of this book: to deal with, heal from, and be free from it, and
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 that's
and to move on.
Yeah, and that's great because that's not just in that's principles in life too. You don't have to have the loss of a baby to read this book. This book has so many applications to it that you can apply in your life with it. That's going to help you grow with it. Because you said, one of the things I like that you said a minute. Yes, we're human and we can get in our feelings, but we can't let our feelings lead us. We got to let that's where we got to let God lead us in that. But there's that human side too.
Yeah.
And any kind of grief and loss can be so overwhelming. So I want to ask you this. I, I'm going to ask you, so it's not you giving up, coming on here doing this plug. I want you to plug this book. I want you to tell us about, give us a little bit more of the book. What? So I get it. Loss of a baby, dealing with it, but I like also you're talking about strength
Yeah.
and how will this help us as a husband, especially you go through this. You think this book is going to help that guy who's going through this help his wife a whole lot better too?
Oh, most definitely. Because this book opens me up to my vulnerability, and it's me putting all of my feelings and emotions in a book for you to read and say, all right, let me see what he really has to say. Because as men, we're taught again to hide it, keep it in, don't say anything, deal with it, man up, be strong. And one of the things that I learned from my father was that you can be manly and still be have a sensitive side to you. And
Yes.
so my father, he's one where I never had to necessarily ask him questions when I got to a different phase or stage of life. He just kind of knew when that time came. And so I learned a lot by him just teaching me, what to do, what not to do, how to handle this. But the one thing that I took from my father was how to be strong and when to be strong and when to show, a vulnerable or sensitive side of you. but don't let other people take advantage of that side either,
Yeah.
because people will use, that you said your kindness for your weakness. So people will use your sensitivity or your vulnerability side against you.
Yes.
Me being able to deal with, heal from, and be free from this, from losing a baby, allowed me to be vulnerable enough to say, I know who I am, I know what I've been through, and I want to help someone else.
Mm.
Because we're like a soda bottle or a soda can. We keep all this stuff inside, and all it takes is one good shaking.
Mm.
And you open up that bottle, and everything comes out all at
Yep.
one time. And when that happens, it can come out on the wrong person at the wrong time at the wrong place. And that's something we don't want to happen, because I've had that happen before, where I
Right.
kept stuff in. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything about it. And it came out
Mm.
on people that it had nothing to do with, but I never dealt with it.
Yeah.
And that soda can got shaken, and the top came off, and it was all she wrote.
Yeah.
So, make sure that, and listen, if that was you or that is you, it's okay. It's okay. There's still healing that can take place. There's still, deliverance that can take place. There's still, you know, there's still help available to you. And if you're in need of help, if you're dealing with your feelings, ask someone, ask a trusted person.
Yep.
Don't just ask anybody. Ask someone trusted who is not going to tell all your business to anybody else.
Yep. And there's no shame in doing that either. I think men, we have shame attached to that somehow when we ask for help. But
Mhm.
you know, I would be disappointed if my best friend went through something and he was hurting and he did not feel like he could come talk to me.
Yeah.
You know, that and I think we have to, us men, we also need to start making a culture around us that we are being better friends to those who are hurting, and let them know that, hey, you do not have to walk this alone.
Yes.
I will be your Aaron. I will hold your arms up. I will do whatever you need. I'm here for you. You don't have to have the answer. And that's the problem with men. We
Mm.
want to have the answers. We want to make it. No, you don't have to have the answer. All you got to be is a friend and be there and let them know they're not walking it alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
That's
know?
so true. That's so true. And I believe that for, you know, just to add a tag onto that, even from a father standpoint, this is why fathers are so important to their children. It's there's a reason why, Elohim is considered to be a father. He's a
Mhm.
father to the fatherless. And when you have a father that's able to teach you what to do, what not to do, to guide you and lead you, you know, hands up, and all credit due to the single mothers out there,
Right.
and the grandmothers who are raising children and all that. Like, we give you guys all the credit in the world. You deserve it. And there's also single men out there that are doing the best they can. But when you have a father who's able to teach his son and go through the stages of life he's going through, that's powerful. That's
Oh yeah.
powerful. And so, my father didn't prepare me for this moment, but he did prepare me to be able to deal with my feelings, and to be
Right.
able to not just hold them in and allow them to overtake me and overpower me to a point where it could have become toxic to my wife or to others.
Right.
And now you're talking about a whole different ball game. Now when stuff starts to become toxic, that's something where now it's like, okay, we need to get other people involved that are professionals now, because now you're in a downward spiral that's going to end up in a very bad place,
Yeah.
and that's not where you want to be. And speaking of that, this like I said, can lead other things. There's, for us as men, it can lead to wanting to drink, or wanting to do things that we normally would not do. And that's just
Yes.
one example. So we don't want to be led astray to doing things that are going to be toxic to us or to our families or others who are tied to us.
Because we got to understand the enemy is out to destroy us as men and husbands and fathers. And in our down moments, in our worst hurts and pains, he's going to really attack us at that point. And
Mhm.
that's why we need one another, and we need a good faith so that we can stand strong. And I imagine that through this, you have grown tremendously as a man, um, as a result of this. But I got to say, probably even more so now that you wrote this book. And if we'll close with this, but I want to ask you one more thing.
Sure.
What what is what is one of the best lessons in this, or best strength, or that that was given to you through this process of what you experienced in writing the book, and everything in this journey since it took place so many years ago?
The biggest thing I learned from doing this is telling my story,
Mm,
because for years, even before I got married, before all that, I struggled with telling my story. I'm like, I'm comparing my story to someone else's. I'm like,
right,
well, my story, there's not enough drama in it. There's not enough, downfall in it. There's not enough this, not enough that. And
right.
I'm like, my story's not, it's not cinematic, you know? And so I'm comparing it to other people's story, but no, it's like, that's your story. Like,
That's right.
someone needs to hear your story.
Yep.
You went through it, not just to be like, oh, okay, I went through that and now I'm moving on with my life. No, you went through it so you can help someone else who's coming behind you.
Yes.
And so I learned to tell my story. And there's other stories that I may tell. This is one
Right.
portion of it. But telling your story is so important, because not only is that, helping you or freeing you, it's helping and freeing someone else.
Yeah.
And no matter how much or how little you want to tell, there has to come a point where you have to be transparent enough to be able to show people the real you,
Yeah.
outside of the fact that, don't try and put on the face that, I'm the holier than thou guy, and I haven't messed up that much, and my stuff's not that bad. Well, look, let's be honest, everybody has something they don't want everybody to know about.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
there is a story that you have that someone's waiting to hear, because you're the one that's been assigned to them to help
Oh,
them
that's
through,
so
whether
good.
it's directly or indirectly. And that was
That
the
is
biggest thing that I learned.
that's so good. And there's nothing better than when you can be free and help someone else be free from something like that, and that's those are some good words, man. Those are really good. I really appreciate you coming on our show today. Um, we're going to put in the description a link for all these, and like I said, I haven't I've been before. I'm 56 now. By the age of 50, I probably read 5 books in my life,
Mm,
and I've gone through some things in my life, and I've started reading and reading. I can't even tell you how many books I've read in the last 2 years alone.
mm,
um, and this is one of those, because this is someone, as a life coach or someone helping other people. Uh, this is this perspective in this book will be tremendous for someone like me, who you know will most surely come across, and has already come across, some men who are dealing with this, and
yeah.
have these struggles. So thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for coming on here and sharing it with us. It's been an honor to have you on here today.
Thank you, Michael. Before we go, if you don't mind, I'm just going to say, if you're looking to purchase the book, you can purchase the book from my website, Tsombawi.com. Like you said, we're going to put the details in the podcast, Tsombawi.com. That's Tsombawi. You can get it there. Or if you like, you can actually get the entire series and get my wife's book, the
Oh,
book that her and her counselor wrote, and my book as a series, and get all three of them if you'd like
that's
to.
awesome.
So just wanted to put
And
that
they can
plug
go
in.
to that website, and that will have all that there.
Yes, sir. It'll be all
Awesome.
there.
Well, awesome. We'll make sure that's in our description with it. And once again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, and being willing to testify to the things in your life and what you've learned. So
Thank
thank
you,
you again.
Michael. I appreciate it. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
And to you guys out there, until next time, keep being intentional. We'll talk to you later.